Hello, Giants fans, and welcome to a new edition of the Valentine's Views podcast here on Big Blue View Radio, part of your SB Nation family of podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you're listening across the Big Blue View Radio network, please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Giants fans, we know that for many of you, your attention has turned to the 2024 NFL draft, and I'm thrilled today to be joined by Dane Brugler of The Athletic as we get an early look at the 2024 draft. Dane, thank you very, very much for hopping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ed.
And I have to thank you for impeccable timing today. We're talking on Wednesday, and Dane's first mock draft of the 2024 cycle dropped this morning. And I promise we didn't do this on purpose, but the timing is impeccable and perfect. And thank you for that.
Oh, well, hey, I moved up the mock just for this. I was gonna run Thursday, Friday. I was like, nope, I'm going on with it Wednesday. Let's do the mock Wednesday. So yeah, worked out.
Works for me. Works for me. I had your Giants cohort Dan Duggan on earlier this week. Had Charlotte Carroll on a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. So it's an athletic run for us here on the Big.
They do such great work. That's great.
Yeah. So hey, we of course have to start with your mock, and you selected Malik Neighbors, wide receiver from LSU for the Giants. I'm curious, the thought process that went into that. I know that the first five were the two quarterbacks, Williams and May, Marvin Harrison, and the two offensive tackles, Alton and Fashanu. So that's what was off the board. So I'm just curious your thought process on Neighbors at 6 for the Giants.
Yeah, and obviously, there's going to be plenty of quarterback conversations that this organization is going to have the next 5 months. Similar to last year, but different. Now with Daniel Jones under contract, but with the injury, it's another factor in all of this. Will the Giants end up with a pick to get either of those first two quarterbacks, Caleb Williams or Drake May, or will they, like any of these other quarterbacks, the QB3, enough to take in the top 7 to 10 picks wherever the Giants end up finishing in the draft order? So plenty of quarterback conversations to have. I went with Malik Neighbors here. I think it's a chance for this offense to get more dynamic, regardless of who's at quarterback. This is a guy that could be a true number one for this offense. When you scout players, something that I pay attention to with offensive skill players is explosive plays. Malik Neighbors has more explosive plays than anybody else, any other receiver in college football. He has 34 receptions of 20-plus yards this year. And to put that in context, that's tied for the most over the last 5 years in college football, tied with Jamar Chase, who had 34 back in 2019, that national title year. And that was with 14 games, 2 more games than Malik Neighbors has had. So he's got over 1,500 receiving yards, production's off the charts. And it's not a lot of gimme receptions here. I mean, he is down the field making plays. All of his catches this year, over 80% have resulted in a first down or touchdown. Anything over 70% is a great number. He's over 80%, which is unbelievable. So now he's got a Heisman Trophy winner or Heisman Trophy contender, and Jaden Daniels throwing to him. That sure helps. But this guy, and he's a young player. He's still just 20 years old, still discovering how good he can be. Not the biggest guy. He's going to be right around 200 pounds, but the speed, the athleticism that he plays with, he can make guys miss. He can get open mid-route. And then his adjustment skills at the catch point, it's just all very natural for him. So again, you drop this guy into the offense. And I understand why some will be, maybe not love this pick. They want to address other need areas. I understand maybe not addressing a position like receiver until, later on and wherever this team is in their process. But when you have a chance to add a difference maker like this, it's hard to say no, because regardless of who's at quarterback, he's going to make the offense better. And not just, the one receiver spot, he's going to make Wan'Dale Robinson better. He's going to make top to bottom, the running game better, the quarterback better. So this can be the type of pick that really reshapes this offense.
It's interesting. One of the things that you said, I think that I like most is the fact that he's still 20 years old. I love taking these guys be, at 20, 21. Age matters. I think age matters because of just the length of NFL careers and the growth process and all that. So I love getting these guys when when they come in at 21 or so. I think that's awesome. And the other thing um, that I always find people ask me, "Oh, what do the Giants need?" And you can say quarterback, you can say wide receiver, you can say more on the edge, you can say corner, you can say whatever you want. I always say difference makers.
Yeah, that's it.
And
And and
Mhm.
and I think that hits the nail on the head because especially when you're picking in the top 10, if you're drafting 21st, I understand maybe focusing on need over anything else. But when you're drafting top 10, the goal should not be to, okay, what's our number one need? Okay, that's where we need to go. It's not about addressing those needs. It's about adding a true blue chipper, a guy that is, can be a tent pole for your franchise, for your roster, and like you said, a difference maker. Who is going to impact this roster the most? And, obviously, quarterback is going to be part of this conversation. There's no doubt. But an impact player on offense like this, who, he's young, he's really ascending at the right time, and you feel like he still has room to grow. Like he's still getting better and better. So, you getting this guy at a point in his career where he's really taking off. And so, he led the SEC in catches each of the last 2 years. It's not just a flash in the pan. At the moment he showed up as a 17-year-old freshman at LSU, he made an impact right away. And then went over 1,000 yards last year as a sophomore, and then this year over 1,500 yards. It just has been outstanding. So yeah, I don't think that maybe not everyone's going to have a 100% universal approval rating of this pick, but I don't think it's a pick that anyone will be, throw the pen down and say, oh, this is a terrible. I don't think anybody will go to that length because this only helps everybody on the offense.
Well, this is the internet, Dane. Nobody ever has a unanimous opinion about anything. So
Every comment I've got in my mock draft has been 100%. They agree with every pick. So it's been great so far.
wow, your guys did we talked about Dan and Charlotte, and they did a survey of Giants fans last week with 8 or 9 questions, and Dan was shaking his head because the should Joe Shane and Brian Daboll return for a third year next year?
Mm.
The yes responses to that were in the 95-96% range, and that's just
Wow.
stunning. That was
Yeah.
just stunning to me. But I mean, I think they should both be back, but that was stunning to me. So let's move on. And you said earlier that the Giants are going to have the quarterback conversation. And let me start with a quick comment on Daniel Jones that I want your take on. I have said that, we've argued about what Daniel Jones is and is not for
Right.
years at Big Blue View, and Giants fans do that all the time. And what I have said is the reasons for his success and his failure and whatever are what they are. And in year 5, considering his 2 neck injuries, his torn ACL, the fact that this year hasn't gone well, he's got 1 more year of guaranteed money on his contract. To me, the reasons don't matter anymore. What matters is it's 5 years. It's not looking the way you want it to look. There's 1 more year left on his contract, and whether they do it in round 1 or they do it later, in some way, shape, or form, it's time for the Giants to start looking forward to who's next. I don't know if you agree with that?
It's hard to disagree. And I think that when you look at this quarterback class, we'll see which underclassmen come out, but this has a chance to be a really deep group of quarterbacks. And so, I think at the very least, you're drafting somebody on day 2 or day 3 that you think you can develop, you think is going to create competition. I don't think Tommy DeVito is a part of the long-term plan necessarily, but he's at least given you something. So it's someone else to add to the mix that's going to give you competition on that depth chart. So the most important position in all of sports is at quarterback. And so if you're not trying to every season, you should look at your situation and say, okay, can we upgrade here? And if the answer is not a resounding no, then you should be looking at every option. It's just due diligence. That's what a smart coaching staff and smart front office would do. And with Daniel Jones, especially now with his injury, you're looking at your options saying it might be smart to go in a different direction here, best for the long term.
So let's have the QB3 conversation a little bit. Every analyst that I look at, every board that I look at, and it's way early, and we haven't gone through the Senior Bowl, and we haven't gone through the interviews, and we haven't gone through the combine, and the NFL coaches haven't got involved in this yet. So everything's going to change. But right now, you pretty clearly put your marker down in this mock draft that you think Jaden Daniels is QB3, at least right now. I think the only other quarterback you had go in the first round was JJ McCarthy, which was later in the round to Seattle. Just at this early stage, why do you think it's Daniels as QB3, and do you think and how do you think that all might shake out in the end?
Well, if you would have told me before the season that Jaden Daniels would have been QB3 and a top 10 pick in my first mock draft in December or late November, I would not have believed it. I mean, I think this is his 50th season as a starter at college football. So obviously everyone has a formed opinion of him going into his final year. And, he was a good player at Arizona State. It kind of fizzled there at the end. It was a rough situation, and that Herm Edwards, when he was head coach there, goes to LSU last year, made big improvements. And then this year, his first time back-to-back years in the same system, and it is showing with the way he is executing. Now, yes, he has an NFL receivers to throw to. Not only Neighbors, but his other receiver, Brian Thomas Jr., also appears in this mock draft. And then even the other two receivers that he throws to are going to be drafted in the NFL. So he's throwing to NFL level guys. But with that said, he's still creating, and he's getting better and better and better. His processing from the pocket, his understanding of route concepts, with how coverages are trying to take away things, and then if this isn't going to work, okay, so we're going to do this. He's finding solutions, and that's something that we didn't always see before. So his maturation to get better and better and better is something that I think is really encouraging. And again, I mentioned the explosive plays with Malik Neighbors. Okay, with Jaden Daniels, so far this year in 12 games, and this is why I think it's a easy choice for the Heisman. I don't think it's even really much of a competition there at the top. He has accounted this year for 90 total explosive plays. Nobody comes close to that in college football. I believe Michael Penix is 2. He's in the 60s. But just go over the last 5 years. That's the most explosive plays in one season by a quarterback. Joe Burrow in that amazing national championship season he had in 2019, one of the best quarterback years we've ever seen at the college level. He had 87 explosive plays in 15 games. Jaden Daniels has 93 more in 3 less games in 12 games this year. So what he's doing this year is unparalleled, and it's really remarkable to see. Most of those have been with his arm. This is not first read's not there, I'm going to drop my eyes and go run. He exhausts every option that he has through his reads and his progressions before he does run. And then when he does, man, is he fast. He destroys pursuit angles. Scares me a little bit. He's a little bit of a maniac when he's deciding to run. Needs to protect his body a little bit more, especially. I think that'll be one of the biggest knocks on him throughout the draft process is just that slim figure that he has. He is 6'3.5", and right now he's 205. So scouts are hoping maybe 212, 215 for the combine. But just that the leaner features are something that will be talked about quite a bit because he does like to run. And when he does run, that he will, instead of just escaping out of bounds or slide, he will take some hits, and he needs to just, for the longevity of his body and his career, doesn't need to prove how tough he is every single run. So, but I think when you talk about the work ethic, you talk to the LSU coaches, they rave about how much he puts in. And it's really manifesting itself on the field this year. So Jaden Daniels, I think you just run out of reasons why he shouldn't be quarterback 3 and why he can't make an impact at the next level. So you look at it, there can be several teams that miss out on either Caleb or Drake May in the top 3. And then it becomes, okay, you're looking at the Raiders, the Giants, the Buccaneers. There's several teams that are kind of on the fence with quarterback, and they're going to have this quarterback 3 conversation, and Jane Daniels is going to be at the forefront of that conversation as they discuss, okay, where do we feel like this guy is an upgrade for us? Do we feel like he is worthy of a first round pick? And, I think the more we go into this process, the more clear it will be for several of these teams that, hey, you know what? He could be that spark we're missing. Is he a perfect player? No, there's some concerns here. But when we focus on the strengths and what Jane Daniels gives us and what he brings to our offense, the best case scenario, we're thinking we're getting pretty excited for what it could be. And so for several of these teams that are tired of watching, you think of the Raiders situation, the Giants are part of this. They're tired of watching the quarterback situation. Jaden Daniels gives them something more that I think he gets you a fan base and a franchise pretty excited.
It's interesting because there are a lot of people that are upset that the Giants have actually won 2 games in a row, and that at this
Right.
point, you know how this goes. Everybody
Sure.
wants the first and second pick, and they've unless they trade up, they've kind of taken themselves out of the Caleb Williams, Drake May conversation at this point. We talked about Daniels, but I've been working on a list, and I've been doing some study, and I'm looking at all of the maybe not superstar quarterbacks, but successful quarterbacks in the NFL that were drafted beyond round 1 at this point. And my list right now includes Jalen Hurts, who might
Mm-hmm.
be an MVP candidate. It includes Dak Prescott, who might be an MVP candidate. If you want to put Lamar Jackson in there, he was drafted 32nd. You can put go back a little ways. You can put Russell Wilson, a 3rd round pick, in that conversation. Kirk Cousins, a 4th round pick. Brock Purdy, obviously, Mr. Irrelevant and a real exception, I think, to the rule, not what you would count on. But the reality of it is you don't have to get that guy at number 1 or number 2. You can get him later. And, my question for you would be, we know a lot of the names. It's Penix, it's Bo Nix, it's Michael Pratt from Tulane, I think. It's Shadur Sanders if he comes out. You look at that second tier of quarterbacks that you didn't put in your first round, and, who are guys that you would say, could end up being, long-term solutions at quarterback for whatever NFL team grabs them.
Yeah, we'll have to see who declares. That's a big part of this conversation. Quinn Ewers from Texas. What does he decide to do? This is a player who has clear talent. You see the arm talent. No wonder why he was a 5-star guy. He's a young player still. He's a true junior, or actually a redshirt sophomore. But he reclassified. So he's in reality kind of a true sophomore. So still young, still growing. He just missed this mock draft, but if he ends up in the first round, I don't think it'd be a huge surprise. I don't think Carson Beck, the Georgia quarterback, is going to declare. Probably goes back to Georgia, but who knows? If they win a national title, he might feel like, what, this is my time. Let's make the jump. I think he is an NFL starter. He's ascending at the right time. Bo Nix, I think, is a day 2 player, someone that can give you starts. I don't know that you feel confident he's going to be able to replicate this success he's having at Oregon in the NFL. Biggest thing with him is they do such a great job with that offense where he knows exactly where to go. The offensive line keeps him really untouched. And, it's not, I don't want to say it's easy for him, but it is a little more simplified than what he's going to see in the NFL. And I think that's where my doubts or my concerns with Bo Nix comes in. And same thing with Michael Penix. I see a lot of Michael Penix for the first round. Michael Penix to me is not a first rounder. Probably not even a second rounder. He's more of a third, fourth rounder for me. He's another guy that really benefits from an offensive line and wide receivers. The accuracy is very up and down with him. I don't think he's going to be an option for anybody in the first round. Who knows? Once you get to day two, all it takes is one team to fall in love with a player. So, that's something else I think is important to say with this. We talk about quarterback 3 and who's quarterback 4. Opinions are going to be all over the place, even really with the first 2. Could we even see like a Jaden Daniels, maybe be quarterback 1 or 2 for a team? You never say never, because all it takes is one team to have concerns about Caleb Williams' fumbles. And he's got 33 over his career. Look at Drake May and some of the reckless decisions that he makes and say, you know what, Jaden Daniels, he's mature. He's fifth-year senior, started for 5 years. He's ready to step in, be the guy, be the leader of our franchise. So I think you can. Basically, what I'm saying is let's not just say, okay, first 2 quarterbacks set in stone, boom, that's it. If I shared some of the quarterback rankings some teams have had in the past, people would, they'd lose they'd be kind of shocked, because teams are just they're very different with how they see these guys, and the culture fits. Not every guy's a perfect scheme fit. So the quarterback rankings from team to team are going to be all over the place. And so I don't think there's going to be a consensus quarterback 1, 2, 3, 4. That's just not how it works. That's not realistic. But I think that more teams than not will kind of look at Jane Daniels and say, okay, quarterback 3. Then it gets interesting. JJ McCarthy from Michigan. Does he enter this draft? If he does, I think that the intangibles, the tools, I think it'd be easy for a team to talk themselves into JJ McCarthy. And then that's where it gets really interesting. I do think Shadur Sanders goes back, but it's until he makes it official. It's anything's possible. So this is and then with this, I mentioned the seniors: Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Michael Pratt from Tulane is a really quality quarterback. He's, in my opinion, kind of this year's Aiden O'Connell, that 4th round pick, 5th round pick, the guy that can be a spot starter, but more likely a career backup, just somebody you want in your quarterback room for the next, 5-7 years, just a really quality player. And then there's some, I know some teams, they're optimistic on Spencer Rattler at South Carolina. That we'll see how, there's some of these guys like Cameron Ward from Washington State, has a decision to make, go back, take advantage of that COVID year, or go to the NFL. So plenty of quarterback decisions that we need to keep an eye on here over the next month.
All right, Dane, before I let you go, I want to move off the quarterback conversation, and I want to talk about a draft decision that the Giants made a couple of years ago. I want to talk a little bit about Evan Neal. We talked to Joe Shane the other day, and obviously things haven't gone the way that the Giants hoped or anticipated with Evan Neal, the way that that they hoped when they drafted him 7th overall. Joe said the other day, in response to a question that I asked him, that he still thinks that Evan Neal can be a right tackle in the NFL. Mm-hmm. I just want to ask you, going back to the way you evaluated Evan Neal, if you can recall, have you been surprised by his struggles? Do you think he can be a right tackle? Do you think that the Giants ultimately have to look at him after 2 years and say, we need to move him into guard to sort of to rescue this pick, and move on with another right tackle?
I am a little surprised that he struggled this much, because it's, obviously he's a big guy. He is, right around that 340, 350, range. But for someone that size, he moves pretty well. He's not a slug out there. He was number 1 on Bruce Feldman's freaks list that year for a reason. The fluidity that he plays with, the flexibility that he plays with. And when we saw it at both spots, he played right tackle at Alabama. He played left tackle at Alabama, and he only gave up, a handful of sacks his entire career in the SEC. You get to count him on one hand. So I think when you scouted him in college, it was easy to look at what he did in that resume and say, okay, I feel comfortable with him translating to the outside tackle in the NFL. Now, obviously, it hasn't gone smoothly. Injuries have been a factor. How much of a factor is debatable. But it is a little surprising that he hasn't shown the growth that we expected to this point. But you know what? I think there's a couple tackles from that class. You look at Ike Mekwonu, from out of NC State, went to Carolina with the pick right before Evan Neal, I think.
Right. Mhm.
He has struggled mightily. So it's a position that not everyone's just a quick going to adapt from day one and be the guy. And I think obviously Giants fans know that best with Andrew Thomas and, his rough rookie season and then the progress that he showed. So if you're the Giants, I think you look at Evan Neal. Yeah, you wish it was better to this point. You're just looking for progress. You want to see him stack good snaps and, stack good games. And if you're not seeing that progress, you definitely have to have a conversation about, are we going to move him inside? He did start. That was one thing I loved about Evan Neal was he started at 3 different positions his 3 years at Alabama. Left guard, then went to right tackle, then went to left tackle. So, he has some of that functional experience that you want at different positions. But yeah, I think it's something that the Giants are going to have a conversation about it. And if you're not seeing that progress, maybe a move inside is what's best for him and the team.
All right, Dane, I know that you're up against it here in terms of time, so appreciate the input, appreciate the time. Maybe when it gets closer to the draft, we'll try to chisel out another 20 minutes, half an hour to update where things are at that point. So thank you very, very much for the time. Just in case people don't know, where they can find your work and what you might have coming up at the Athletic after this mock.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at DP Brugler. I'll post all the links there. Obviously, everything's on the Athletic. Prospects to Pros, our podcast as well. So mock draft just dropped today. Plenty of good things coming up here as we get into the draft cycle, and then of course the Beast, the draft guide that'll be out. First week of April. That I promise, if you like the draft at all, you will not be disappointed with the draft guide, with the amount of work that goes into it. So people can look forward to that as well.
That thing all by itself is worth the price of the Athletic subscription. Yeah. So I highly recommend it just for that, if you love the draft. All right, Giants fans, thank you as always for listening. Please stay safe out there, take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.